Hi guys, and welcome to a new video on F1 highlights. In today's video, we reveal why Toto Wolff is shocked. So without further ado, let's get started. Lewis Hamilton competed for victory at the British Grand Prix until the end of the race, but eventually had to settle for third place after being overtaken by Sergio Perez's Red Bull in the closing stages. Hamilton started the race at Silverstone from 5th position, but got off to a good start and managed to stay close to the leaders throughout the race. After Verstappen slumped back due to problems with his car, a competitor dropped out for the win and Hamilton was able to fully focus on both Ferraris. In the final phase, at the restart, Sergio Perez suddenly joined. The Mexican managed to push Hamilton to the lowest step of the podium. It may not have been the result that Hamilton had hoped for, but he was finally competitive for a whole race again, and that gives confidence for the future. Afterwards, Hamilton appeared to loud applause from the crowd at the grid interviews conducted by Jenson Button and looked back on his race. First of all, he wanted to thank his fans. "Thanks everyone for the great support. We don't see this anywhere else in the world," he started before zooming in on his race. "I tried to chase the Ferraris, but they were just too fast today. At the end, I was fighting with Sergio, but they are also too fast on the straights." It seemed that Hamilton mainly lost time shortly after he had changed tyres, but according to the Brit, that was not so much the reason for the lack of the win. "We lost time with a pit stop and then I had to keep chasing. When you have a Red Bull behind you, poof, they are so fast." The 7-time world champion sighs. "There is therefore still work to be done. We still have steps to make. We keep pushing. We keep doing our best," said Hamilton. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff has said it was a shocker to discover that rival Formula 1 squads may have been exploiting flexi doors to help control porpoising. As part of the discussions between the FIA and teams about a planned safety clampdown on excessive porpoising that drivers are unhappy about, one area of focus has been on the stiffness of the floors and planks of cars. During talks in a Technical Advisory Committee (TAC) meeting in the week after the Canadian Grand Prix, suspicions emerged of some teams pushing the boundaries of the rules that are supposed to limit the flexing of their floors and planks. The current regulations stipulate a maximum deflection of 2 mm at the two middle plank holes and no more than 2 mm at its rearmost hole in a bid to ensure that the floor is stiff enough. However, there were claims some teams have managed to cleverly flex the floors by as much as 6 mm in total, which would allow them to run with higher rake and much closer to the ground for increased performance without the risk of suffering the ill effects of ground strikes. Sources suggest a number of teams were surprised at what their competitors had been up to, with Wolff confessing how taken aback he was about the situation. "Nobody had an idea until the FIA brought it up in the last Technical Advisory Committee, which was to a great surprise of all the teams," he explained. What's in the regulation and what the intent of the regulations is pretty clear. I mean, there's no argument why that could deflect more than what's in the regs. So a bit of surprise to say the least, more of a shocker. In response to the revelations over Flexi-floor antics, the FIA responded as part of its bid to reduce the effects of porpoising by notifying teams of a planned change to the rules. In the draft technical directive issued at the British Grand Prix by the FIA's single-seater technical director Nicolas Tombazis, and which comes into force in France, the FIA has announced a tightening up of the rules regarding floor stiffness. It made clear that it was making the move to ensure that there was a fair and equitable relevance amongst all the cars, which perhaps suggested that it was not the case before. Tombazis made clear that the FIA believed teams having excessive deformation of the floor was being done to achieve significantly lower ride heights and, hence, an indirect aerodynamic gain. The 2 mm tolerance will be rigorously enforced and the stiffness around the floor hole must now be uniform for a radial distance of 15 mm outside the periphery, with a variance not exceeding 10% either way. The FIA added, competitors will be required to demonstrate compliance with these provisions by way of a detailed inspection of both the CAD and the physical installation, as well as the finite element analysis. A number of teams have welcomed the move by the FIA, as they suggest that they must have acted because it felt some teams were going too far with what they were doing. McLaren team boss Andreas Seidel said, "There must be a reason why Nicolas has put up some clarifications in what he wants to see and what he expects. From our point of view, we're happy with this clarification, which is in the TD, because in the end it should help us, that we're all on a level playing field." While it's unclear which teams were potentially playing around with flexi floors, Mercedes trackside engineering director Andrew Chauvelin reckoned that the change could help move his squad nearer to the front. "When it came to light, we realized there was opportunities that we've perhaps not been taking or exploiting," he said. "So it won't affect us in how we run our car. it may well be it affects our competitors, and by virtue of that, we move a little bit closer. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button to not miss any F1 news.